So the Green Bay Packers adding Sammy Watkins, it's an interesting move. So Sammy Watkins, kind of, the way we always view him is when he's on the field, he tends to play pretty well. He always does great week one. He had a decent amount of snaps last year. His overall snap count was 457 with Baltimore. Wasn't amazing, only 394 yards. Again, weird offense Baltimore had, so it's always a little bit different. Can't just use receiving yards for that. Only a 1-year, $4 million deal, though. So this is kind of what we thought Green Bay was going to have to do. They still don't have a ton of money, even after getting rid of Devontae Adams. So they were going to have to kind of take these smaller deals and hope that things work out. And that's kind of what we've seen from Watkins these past few years, really, is he's, constantly been getting these 1-year prove-it deals, it seems like, for several years, and just shows enough to get another 1-year prove-it deal, doesn't quite show enough to get a long-term contract. In Green Bay, of course, hoping that, playing with Aaron Rodgers, things can work out well. Granted, it's not like Watkins has been playing with bad quarterback play. I mean, okay, again, you could argue the Ravens' offense was weird, and that's kind of why Watkins maybe didn't super thrive there. But he also played in the Chiefs' offense, and again, was good when on the field. He's a solid player. He just isn't a superstar even when on the field. My first reaction is I like this move from Green Bay's perspective. It's a low-risk, high-reward move. At Watkins' best, he's a good number 2 option. So if you are getting that for just $4 million, that's an absolute steal. And if it doesn't work out, well, okay, what else are you going to do? To me, this tells me a little bit of this might mean that guys like Odell and Julio are out of Green Bay's price range, because I feel like if you are going to take a 1-year prove-it deal option and you have a little bit more money, those would be the guys you would look after, just because they have a higher ceiling for that 1-year prove-it deal. So that's an interesting little wrinkle here, but again, as a whole, it's kind of a necessary move for the Packers, right? I mean, who else was Rodgers going to throw the football to? They literally needed wide receivers. They were literally going to have to sign wide receivers just in general to make sure they had a full wide receiver room. So, of course, the draft, you have to assume they're going to add some more talent through that. You have to assume that this is not it. If this is all they're doing, this is definitely not very good. But, Watkins, again, I don't love it if they're expecting him to be a number 1 option, but he's only getting $4 million. So I can't imagine they're expecting him to be a number 1 option. Really, I think the ideal way to sign Sammy Watkins is to sign him as your wide receiver 4. And that might seem a little bit harsh because he's better than a wide receiver 4, but that should be the logic, is we're signing him as a wide receiver 4 who's going to come in, give us 400 snaps, and hopefully be solid in that. And then there's the potential that things work out and are better. And, he's getting paid like a wide receiver 3 or 4, so that all checks out and that works out. And I do think that Watkins should be able to work well with Rodgers and should be able to work well in this LaFleur scheme. Now, I think every receiver would work well in this scheme. It's a good scheme. It works out really well. A big fan of this scheme. Big fan of LaFleur. Big fan of Rodgers. So, yeah, put Watkins in there. It's gonna work out. But I think even with that, I think Watkins' skill set, especially, listen, I feel like he still does have speed. Now, maybe it's dropped off in the past couple of years. I don't know. But using that speed, we all remember the Super Bowl play on Richard Sherman, burning him deep. I'm not sure if he'll do that as much in Green Bay, but that's kind of the first play I thought of Green Bay will get teams to play zone, and then he can kind of get some one-on-one matchups on the outside and might be able to win those. And the reason why I think that's important is this is an offense that doesn't really have that right now, right? They don't really have if teams are playing cover 3, if teams are only having one safety deep because they have to put the other safety in the box because A.J. Dillon's running down their throat, well, then what do you have to do? Well, you have to find a way to win, you have to find a way to get someone who can win on the outside. Watkins at least has that capability, but probably not going to do it consistently. So you still do have to draft someone. That still has to be a move. Watkins, if you're a fan of PFF grades, he had his best year in 2015, but the past couple of years, his grades have been lower, in mid-60s, whereas he's typically kind of a low 70s guy throughout the course of his career. So according to that, he's dropped off a little bit. And listen, injuries are a very real thing. I mean, this is the guy who hasn't played 1,000 snaps since his rookie season in 2014. So a big chunk of it, why it's a prove-it deal, is because, who knows, he might be injured. But at the same time, I don't think he's washed up necessarily. He's only 28 years old. So that's another factor here. Watkins feels like he's 45. No, he's 28. So he'll be 29 by the time the season starts. But still, I mean, that's good. That makes you feel like, okay, that's a little bit better. There's a little bit higher likelihood of this working out. And again, when your wide receiver 1 is Allen Lazard, you have to add guys there. This is completely beside the point. Just saw Geno Smith got signed for 1 year, $7 million. Okay, so good for Geno. Geno Smith getting more than Sammy Watkins, which is interesting as well. So again, $4 million. And really, the way I always view contracts in the NFL is, so if it's a $4 million contract, that's not exactly how I view it, because you have to, the minimum contract is about $1 million, and you have to pay, you have to pay 53 guys on the roster. So in doing that, it's kind of like essentially you have a pool of roughly $150 million of money after that you can spend, and then you can, you take out $1 million out of every single contract. So it's kind of like $3 million out of the pool, which I guess maybe needlessly complicates things to some degree. But with these smaller contracts, it kind of makes you feel like, okay, no, we're taking a little bit out of the pool, because the $1 million you have to pay to someone anyways. You need to fill up a roster regardless. So I think it's hard to look at this and say it's a bad move, right? Like, what would have to happen for this to not work out? And what's worst case scenario? I guess the worst case scenario is Sammy Watkins gets an injury after his week 1 good performance, because he always does well week 1, gets that good week 1 performance, struggles after that, and then he, okay, well, you're out $4 million. Like, you can work with that. You can spend the extra $4 million. Listen, like, $4 million matters. Like, it's not nothing, right? It's not like that isn't a part of the cap, but it's just such a low risk and really high reward move. I like this move for the Packers. I do think it moves the needle a little bit. They needed wide receiver depth more than anything. They needed just guys in the room. I think that it could have been a big mistake if they went after, if they got Allen Robinson and then just said, okay, well, we're good. We don't need anything else, because they needed more guys. And kind of the whole point of getting rid of Devontae Adams, okay, well, part of it is they kind of didn't have a choice. Adams requested a trade, but they still could have, it seemed like they were at least considering moving off of him earlier. And part of the benefit of moving off of him is you can get a more complete receiving core by spending a lot more of your assets to do so. So, as a whole, again, I think it's a good move. I don't know how much is moving the needle, but this kind of, I think at the very least what it does is it doesn't force you to have to draft more than one receiver. I think they have to draft a receiver, but you don't have to go into the draft saying we need 2 guys. I would still like 2 guys, but if you have one guy and then you don't love any of the receivers available in round 2 or whatever, you're not forced to take one. You can take someone else if you think they'll be better, and then you roll with Watkins as a third option. But ideally, you would still like to have him as, again, him and Lazard. They're fine players. Still need to add some stuff, though. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And, of course, as always, thanks for watching.